I'm sure you all know why we're here. We're Students for Sensible Drug Policy. We advocate changing American drug policies for the better, for a more safer and just future. Today we got Dave Otto from the group Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. They're a group of law enforcement officers who believe that, by legalizing drugs we will create a more safe and more just society that will be more free of the problems of disease, addiction, and crime and violence associated with the drug trade. So, without further ado, I present to you Dave Otto.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Thank all of you for coming. Thanks, Jason, and the group for putting this on. This is an opportunity for us to come out, share our knowledge and experience with groups of people, and try to engage with you in terms of trying to bring about changes to drug policy. The stated mission of LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, is to have a voice in creating sensible drug policy. We're apolitical in the sense that we don't endorse political candidates or any one political party or anything like that. We simply want a seat at the table in discussing drug policy. We think it's been a remarkably one-sided discussion to this point. And so by going out and having dialogue with people, there's an opportunity for me to teach you what I know about the drug war from my perspective. There's also an opportunity for me to come and learn from you, because it's not so much that I'm the expert on the drug war. We're all affected by it, even if we don't know that. As community college students, you're affected by the drug war, even if you're not a drug user, because resources that could be poured into your education are instead being poured into building prisons, prison beds, and the futility of the drug war. So we'll get into all that. What I'd like to do is get a sense of, before I kind of go into my spiel about my perspective and where I got it, I'd like to learn a little about you. So how many of you are here because you are a part of a group, the Group for Sensible Drug Policy, and you are you're advocates or you're looking to become advocates? Okay. How many of you here are simply because you're just curious about the subject? Okay. Is there anybody here that supports current drug policy, thinks it's a good idea, it's working? Anybody here just for the pizza? Now, you don't have to raise your hand for this one, but you just give me a kind of a nod and a wink. How many of you occasionally use marijuana? Okay. So I know who to blame if this all starts to go badly tonight. Okay. All right, so that helps me. That gives me a sense of who you are and where you're coming from. And I appreciate those of you who went ahead and raised your hand and acknowledge that you might be occasional marijuana users, because there's a growing thought, and this is me speaking, it's not LEAP. Any of you read Andrew Sullivan, the blog? Andrew Sullivan has a lot, I think, of smart things to say about the drug war and prohibition. And lately he's been kind of on a thing about cannabis users have to come out of the closet. That we need people who basically are functional human beings, members of society, contributing members of society, saying, hey, you know what? I smoke, and I'm not what you make cannabis users out to be, okay? And he feels that's what's going to change the perception. The current debate on prohibition, unfortunately, is dominated on a couple different sides. On the anti-prohibition side, you've got the libertarians. People who politically are sometimes a little to the right of Attila the Hun, but they've got attitudes about liberty and about society, how it should function, and a police state. But their arguments tend to be very, sometimes, I'm sure you might agree with the cannabis part of the libertarian spiel, but when they get into doing away with the Department of Education and the Department of the Interior, you know, the libertarian rant can sometimes really leave you like, whoa. If it was up to libertarians, the government would consist of 5 guys at a bus stop up in Alexandria, you know, doing business. Well, okay. Libertarians in the house. And then there are the Seth Rogans, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have seen Pineapple Express. He tells his girlfriend that, you know, marijuana use is cool because he smokes it in a bong, and that filters out all the addictive agents. And there's probably nobody who's a worse advocate for undoing prohibition than a pothead who's high at the time they're trying to make the case. Because it's like, whoa, you know, it's like, and I give you the very first, actually the second function I did with LEAP back in 2002 was the Seattle Hemp Fest. And I lived in Seattle at the time. And I'm very open-minded, live and let live type of person, okay? But Hemp Fest in Seattle, you know, with the dreadlocks, you'd be considered ultra-conservative at the Hemp Fest in Seattle. It's like the freaks come out for the Hemp Fest, okay? And we're there for 3 days. We had a thing right off the main stage. And after 3 days there, it was kind of like, what in the hell are we doing? We were advocating for the legalization of drugs. And out here before us, it looks like Mad Max meets Bugs Bunny. I mean, it really was, it was a freak fest. But then, you know, a little perspective, 2 months later, I went to Oktoberfest, and that's no prettier. As a matter of fact, it's a lot uglier because at least at Hempfest, it didn't smell like puke everywhere, okay? And so you can't go by people who are out actively doing their thing. That's not what we can judge this issue by. You know, if you were going to judge whether alcohol should be legal by touring Skid Row, you know, you're going to come away with one conclusion, that no, it shouldn't be legal. Okay, so you have to take a much broader perspective. I want to tell you a little bit about my history and how I came to my perspective. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, when pot was decriminalized there for less than 30 grams. It was a $5 fine. I was a typical kid of the 50s or the 60s and 70s. I went to community high school in Ann Arbor, which was the alternative high school, and it was loose at community high school. You didn't have to attend class. If you did, you could smoke, you could just kind of do your thing. And that's the environment I grew up in. It's probably where I get a lot of my attitudes about live and let live. But in 1979 in southern Michigan, you had the Otto, you know, very reminiscent of the times we're in economically. So I was going to go in the Army just because that seemed like the only thing to do. I told them, I want to jump out of airplanes, and I want to work with radios. That's what I want to do, okay? Well, you flat feet, you can't jump out of airplanes, and the testing, I scored exceptionally well on some tests, and they said, how would you like to be an MP in Germany? I said, yeah, shit, you know? So, I mean, I'm an accidental police officer, okay? Come down to a test score. It came down to a silly offer to be an MP in Germany.